Now on this special election edition of Eyewitness News at 10. America decides who will lead the nation for the next 4 years. We have the latest on the historic presidential election.
What about the number of voters who turned out in Bexar County on this election day? Tonight, a breakdown of the ballot box, plus why sheriff deputies had to respond to polling sites.
KENS 5 tonight projecting Sheriff Javier Salazar will have another 4 years at the helm of the Bexar County Sheriff's Office.
Jerry Rickoff defeated in the race for Bexar County Sheriff. Coming up, how much of the vote he received and his plans for the future.
3 propositions projected to be approved. What this means for people who are living in San Antonio.
We have live updates on local, state, and national races. Eyewitness News at 10 starts right now.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Deborah Knapp.
And I'm Aaron Wright. First at 10, America's future in the hands of millions.
Tonight, we have team coverage on the local elections, including the race for Bexar County Sheriff, City of San Antonio propositions, and the latest on the Bexar County turnout.
We're also following the highly anticipated presidential race between Donald Trump and challenger Joe Biden as they fight for battleground states and battle for Texas. Here's a quick look at where the presidential race stands with Texas voters right now.
And we have a lot of results to cover for you tonight on this special edition of Eyewitness News at 10. As you could see there, President Trump has been pulling ahead in the last hour here in Texas.
Throughout the newscast, we will have live results scrolling at the bottom of your screen.
Now let's turn to a big race in Texas, the battle for the U.S. Senate. Democrat M.J. Hager has conceded to incumbent Republican John Cornyn. That's as the Associated Press projects Cornyn as the victor. Here's how the results stand right now. Hager has never held a public office. The combat veteran released a statement tonight saying she believes the work her grassroots campaign accomplished will move Texas forward for years to come. Meantime, Cornyn is now heading back to D.C. for a 4th term.
Happening right now, Bexar County election officials are updating the total number of voters who showed up on this election day.
They were anticipating a much larger turnout at the polls. Eyewitness News reporter Henry Ramos joins us live from the Bexar County Elections Department.
Henry, that record-breaking early vote really cut into today's numbers.
It really did, Aaron and Deborah. We're talking about more than 676,000 voters who showed up to those polls in that early voting period. I was just on my phone trying to listen to the latest numbers, and it looks like in comparison to today on Election Day, 83,000 voters showed up, and they've processed so far about 27,000 of those votes. Percentage-wise, 64% of voters turned out in this general election, surpassing the percentage from the one 4 years ago. That one was at 57%. Right now, it is a hustle and bustle inside election headquarters right behind me. We even have an inspector with the Secretary of State's office here, making sure that everything is accurate and going smoothly. I want to take you inside election headquarters. Brand new video we just got. You can see the staff here. They are processing a lot of information, a lot of paperwork to do even after the polls closed 3 hours ago. Now, some voters did linger past the 8 o'clock hour. Bexar County dealing with ballots from more than 300 sites. Election officials tell us there were no major problems at the polling sites today, though we did learn tonight. Sheriff deputies had to respond to 2 different sites for voters who came in with campaign regalia, and they refused to remove it. Deputies had to come in to relieve that situation. Mail-in ballots, also a big part of this conversation. It has been in this election. Bexar County has sent out 120,000 mail-in ballots. They have processed 80,000, and they do expect to continue to receive more tomorrow, though as long as it's post-dated today's date, those votes will still count. Though overall, the Bexar County Elections Administrator says she is proud of Bexar County for coming out in full force in this election cycle, especially during that early voting period. We're live outside election headquarters tonight. Henry Ramos, KENS 5, Eyewitness News.
Our election coverage continues in just a minute, but first, breaking news in far west Bexar County.
Deputies shoot and kill a man in a community off Talley Road. KENS 5 Eyewitness News reporter Jaleesa Irizarry joins us live from the scene. Jaleesa, what can you tell us about what's going on out there?
Yeah, this all started at 7:30 this evening, just down this road right here. We are on Gage Road. I'll step out of the shot so you get a better view. But the sheriff's office got a call from a young man asking for deputies to be here as he was retrieving some of his items from a house he had recently moved out. It appears he was living with a relative there. When he went inside to get his items, he told deputies there was a shotgun in plain view, and it gave him pause. Deputies went to make contact with that 55-year-old suspect and saw him crouching by a car in the garage. And at one point, Salazar says the suspect made a movement like he was drawing a weapon from his holster. Deputies did make commands for him to drop the weapon as they backed out of the garage and up against the fence. And at that point, the man had the gun up in the air. They say the suspect began to level it towards the deputies, and that's when the two fired their guns. Now, when we asked why this young man felt the need to bring deputies to retrieve items, this is what the sheriff had to say.
There was some sort of a less than amicable split. I don't believe we have a call history to this residence.
Now, Salazar says the DA is en route to this shooting as part of their new program that they're investigating officer-involved shootings. Now, in regards to those deputies that both fired their guns, one is a 10-year vet, the other a 4-year vet. We'll, of course, bring you more information on KENS 5 and KENS5.com, but for now, we're live on the far west side. Jaleesa Rosari, KENS 5, Eyewitness News.
Jaleesa, thank you. In the race for Bexar County Sheriff, KENS 5 is projecting Sheriff Javier Salazar as the winner. Salazar was up against Republican Jerry Rickoff. As you can see, Salazar received 62.2% of the vote. Mariah Medina joins us live. Mariah, has the sheriff declared victory?
Aaron, no, in fact, as the sheriff was about to come up and speak, he abruptly left this downtown venue with members of the sheriff's office in tow, headed toward that deadly shooting in far west Bexar County. I did speak with his campaign spokesman, who tells me that the sheriff did not intend on declaring victory, even if the numbers showed him ahead. I talked to the sheriff yesterday ahead of the election. He told me if he was reelected, the next 4 years would be a lot of the same: deputy accountability, raising hiring standards, and continuing training.
Well, nobody has ever dialed 911 and said, hey, send me a Democrat or send me a Republican. I've done my best to protect and serve every single one of our 2 million Bexar County residents, regardless of party affiliation, race, religion, anything else. I've done my best over those 28 years to protect and serve my community. Certainly the last 4, I've been blessed beyond measure to be your Bexar County Sheriff.
And that statement was from yesterday. Again, we did not get the opportunity to speak with the sheriff. Aaron, Deborah, back to you.
All right, Mariah, thank you. And continuing our team coverage of the sheriff's race, Eyewitness News reporter Zach Briggs spoke with Jerry Rickoff a little earlier this evening.
Well, Mr. Rickoff joined by family tonight, and while at a defeat, he tells me he has no plans of giving up public service here in Bexar County.
Rickoff's campaign resonated with well over 240,000 people, which he says is welcoming. This is a man who lacks any law enforcement experience, but boasts over 30 years in public service, ranging from working as county clerk to teaching special education students on San Antonio's South Side. As for what's next, Rickoff plans to continue his public service by working in food security. And despite being defeated, Rickoff hopes Salazar does what is necessary to improve the sheriff's office.
I think that we ought to have a real look at how we're doing our policing, how we treat the humanity of the 4,000 people we have locked up on Comell Street, and how we do our criminal justice system.
And of course, for the full election results on the Bexar County Sheriff's race, go to KENS5.com. I'm Zach Briggs, KENS 5 Eyewitness News.
And here's a look at District 21. It was a race between Republican Chip Roy and Democrat Wendy Davis. You can see Roy in the lead at 50.4%, Davis trailing at 47%. This race still reporting at 68% right now. And to District 23, Tony Gonzalez and Gina Ortiz Jones faced off. Gonzalez with a bigger lead at 51.2%, Jones at 46.2%. This again to replace Republican Will Hurd in his congressional seat.
And in the race for President of the United States, voters are deciding whether President Trump deserves a second term or if Joe Biden will be our next leader. Right now in Texas, Donald Trump has pulled ahead. This was tied all night long until just about an hour ago. President Trump with 51.4% to Joe Biden's 47%. Polls show Republicans tend to come out more on Election Day. This is what it is showing here in Texas. Polls have closed on the West Coast for Washington, Oregon, and California. They are still voting in Alaska and Hawaii. President Trump says he believes he has a solid chance of beating Joe Biden. CBS News projects the president has won the states of Indiana, Oklahoma, and Kentucky. CBS News shows Trump with 86 electoral votes so far. And senior Biden campaign officials are confident he is going to win, even if it takes a while. CBS News projects Joe Biden has won the states of Vermont, Delaware, Massachusetts, and the District of Columbia. CBS News shows Biden with 168 electoral votes so far. When it comes to who wins the White House, it all comes down to the Electoral College. There are 538 total electoral votes. 270 are needed to win. The number of electors in each state is determined by how many seats each state has in Congress. Texas has a total of 38 electoral votes.
Let's check in on some key local races. Here's a look at where things stand for Bexar County Commissioner Precinct 1. We're looking at Becky. Clay Florida is at 65% over her opponent. And for Precinct 3, Republican Trish DeBerry faced off against Democrat Christine Hordick. DeBerry in the lead there with 54% to Hordick at 45%.
And here is a look at the race for the Texas Senate District 19. Incumbent Republican Pete Flores is trailing against State Representative Roland Gutierrez. Flores pulled off a stunning victory when he won this seat to replace Carlos Uresti. But as you can see there, Gutierrez with just a little over 50% of the vote to Flores's 45%. This is with 60% of the vote in. Latinos are expected to be the largest minority bloc this election. They could help determine the outcome of the presidential race, particularly in key states, including Texas, where they make up 30% of the eligible voters. Professor Sharon Navarro with the Department of Political Science at UTSA joins us now to talk about the power of the Latino vote. Dr. Navarro, how is the Hispanic vote impacting the races right here in Bexar County?
We still have a slight support for Joe Biden and trailing Donald Trump.
Well, the polling in battleground states has shown Mr. Biden leading President Trump among Hispanic voters, but not in every case. And even in Florida, it showed Trump ahead, and rarely by the same margin that Mrs. Clinton commanded in 2016. Why is Biden not doing as well as Clinton?
The criticism on the Biden campaign is that they started to reach out to Latinos fairly late. And the polling has been a little confusing for Latinos. There was a lack of recognition of generational differences as well as gender differences.
Well, in order to win Texas, Biden has to outperform Clinton here among Latinos. She won 61% of the vote. Will he be able to do that?
Biden is doing better in some of the counties than we had expected. In Harris County, he's polling well above than expected, and Donald Trump is sort of trailing. But it's still early in the night, and the election is not over until the last vote is counted.
Well, the Latino vote is not a monolithic vote. I mean, it is split along generational lines. I mean, what party has a future with the Hispanic vote?
It depends on the party that reaches out to them. The Latinos will support a candidate that speaks to them. And what we see in this election is Donald Trump spoke to the Latino communities, particularly the males, stating that he was strong on economics and he had a way out of this pandemic. And Latinos are a type of community that is pick you up by your bootstraps and moving forward in a very tough economy.
All right, Dr. Navarro, thank you for joining us.
Coming up, a break from the returns and the 7-day forecast and why we have to keep an eye on Hurricane Ada. We'll be right back.